Welcome, everyone, to the Aging and Spirituality podcast, where we're going to discuss how to connect with your unrealized potential. That's a subject we really, really love. I'm Kathy Lee Taylor, and my co host is.
Chris Jensen.
And we welcome you here. I have titled my talk today, COVID-19 tried to kill us all, but we're still here. And we're going to talk about how to recover from the pandemic because it's my belief that there is some balancing that we need to do to get back to harmony. This was been a long, sustained, stressful period for a lot of people, and I'm going to open up the day just talking about that kind of reversal of trust in the world that we've experienced since early 2019. I mean, I was coming back. This happened in March of 29, keep in mind. I was coming back in January of 2019 from Scotland, where my son got married. And unfortunately, his wife caught the virus on their honeymoon, but nobody knew what it was at that point. We didn't start locking down until March. We really didn't have an understanding of what the virus was. And it became this, big, big, scary thing. For most of us, we were avoiding people. We were avoiding our friends, our family, our most precious loved ones. We couldn't even be around them, like Chris and I, we couldn't go to the yoga center. We couldn't do those things that we have counted on for many, many years. And it was very upsetting, upsetting, and the consequences were not small. The consequences in a lot of cases were life and death. We lost friends, we lost loved ones. And people are still grieving today over those losses. And, our hearts go out to them right now.
Well, people who got COVID in the beginning, there are some of them who have long COVID and they're still suffering.
And they're still suffering. And I know because my daughter-in-law is one of those. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. It was, I believe, a real intense time of isolation that kicked off an ongoing grief that most of us are still recovering from. And we're going to give you in the next upcoming times some more talk about grief. I'm not going to go into that here, but I really do think that that was one of the outcomes of the pandemic. I mean, on top of the pain of losing loved ones, people close to us, like our family, we also saw our country become divided by rhetoric that sowed seeds of violence. Why they came together at the same time, who knows? But really, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of this global shift, the energy of those two worlds really kicked us in the collective ass. That's the truth. That is the truth. It disrupted our sense of safety. It threw our bodies into fight and flight or freeze, which is another state that I'm going to talk about. And for many of us, it really triggered a deep void in our sense of belonging. When you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, we got thrown right back down to belonging, like what the heck is going on? And really, nobody was talking about it. Nobody's telling you how to get over it. Nobody's telling you how to deal with it. So this is why I really wanted to talk about this today in case you're experiencing some of these things and we can help you release them.
Right.
Like what is happening inside us now, inside our minds and bodies, and the other masses of people in the world that is happening since this painful transition. We're going to take a look, and I'm going to give you some ideas of what might be going on and see if you can relate to them. So Chris and I were talking about conferring with psychologist stuff, and I happened to be listening to this really interesting podcast on a podcast called On Being by Krista Tippett. Fantastic podcast. Highly recommend it. She was interviewing Dr. Christine Runyon, who's a clinical psychologist and professor in the Department of Family and Medicine and Community Health at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. Amazing credibility. It's always helpful to have those kinds of titles, skills, certifications to understand, what is going on. She's also a mindfulness teacher, which is really interesting as well. She works as a therapist coach. So in early 2021, she was saying that she received multiple emails from clients who were experiencing an activation of prior trauma from the pandemic events. These patients were coming to her seeking care because they were having trouble what was recognizing what's going on with them since they got hit by COVID, not realizing that these past traumas had been re-triggered. So she was theorizing that people whose nervous systems went into high gear during the time of the virus had not really had a chance to calm down their parasympathetic nervous system, which is that fight and flight response, right? Because the threat never really went away. The threat is still with us, much less, much reduced. At first it was, boy, anybody gets exposed to it is going to die. Now it's a lot less, but the threat never really went away, and it kind of manifested and formed into this societal issue that we're having with the struggle with our country being so divided at the moment. So I'm not saying that, this is an overarching explanation for everyone. Don't get me wrong, but I really find it an interesting premise because I believe that understanding it will help you know what's going on with your body's physiological response to being under that ongoing perceived threat. For what, 5 years now? Like, have you really thought about it? Have you really given yourself a chance to take a look at, boy, how have I responded to all this, fight and flight energy going through my body all these years? Runyon describes it this way. She says, we talk about fight or flight, but there's also a state of what she calls freeze. And this state is apathy and detachment, or you feel really disembodied or disassociated. It feels like numbing,
Mhm.
It means that the body is still in a high state of physiological arousal to protect itself, but we are more prone to getting depressed, getting disoriented,
Yep.
getting disconnected. All of those things are still happening. So, humans, our nervous systems are used to touch. They know what touch is. It knows what closeness is and hugs are, and it needs those things. And for a long time, we weren't getting that. And I don't know how much that's come back into your life, but it's really, really important to have those connections come back. So, not to be able to do those things during that extended period of time of COVID when we couldn't be with each other was really hard for a lot of people. It was experienced as a great loss and a grief that they still carry around. At least that's what this psychologist was saying. And I know that neuroscience will tell us that if you're feeling disconnected, lonely, apart, our nervous system releases oxytocin. That was really interesting, something that I didn't know. Oxytocin is a love hormone, right? Oxytocin is what wants us to connect.
Yeah.
So now your body is releasing this love hormone, and because it's trying to seek out connection. It's trying to find somebody to hug, somebody to be with, some love expression. And that has probably happened for a lot of people. So hopefully you fulfilled those kind of needs in a healthy way, because there are lots of unhealthy ways to reach out do that, but think about social isolation just on its own, because isn't that what we do to people when we put them in prison because we want to punish them? Social isolation is really, really tough. So one of the other things that Runyon was saying was that when we were socially distanced so that we were avoiding the infection, our needs for love and belonging were not being met, as I've already said. And because of that, what started to happen was we started what she called grouping. Are you in my group? Or are you in the other group? People talk about that now. They use the word tribe. Like, are you in my tribe? Are you the like-minded person in my tribe? Which is a, interesting marketing term from it. But what was happening in that grouping, in us doing that as a response to the pandemic, was that we lost our connection to humanity. Our connection to that oneness got damaged. This is so important. I need you to really hear that and understand that we disconnected from humanity to some degree while we were going through this social isolation. Important to be aware of, so we can start encouraging that to come back into our lives. Um, let's see, according to Runyon, there's other factors that could be involved in this particular process. And that is like, how did you deal with stress before the pandemic? How did you deal with stress when you were a little kid? Is it conscious? Is it unconscious?
Mhm.
Did you respond with an open mind? Did you have cognitive flexibility to share one another's perspectives and ideas, or did we meet each other with rigid thinking and aggression? Gee, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? It really does explain a lot of what is going on in the world right now. So if we can be aware of it, we can change it. This is really, really important. So where did, let's stop and think about ourselves. Where did you fall on the empathy scale during this time? Were you helping people on Zoom, talking to helping people? We're still doing our podcast, right? We're still out there doing our thing. So it's good. And just trying to say that it's good to be aware of what you might have still be experiencing or have experienced that you could change now and open up the floodgates again. There's one other point that I wanted to mention about what could possibly have happened during the pandemic to you. And it's something that the psychologist called, and this is another term that I was not familiar with, allostatic load. And that refers to the cumulative effects of chronic stress on your mental and physical health. Cumulative effects of chronic stress on both mental and physical health. So it's the wear and tear on the body that accumulates when you're exposed to repeated or chronic stressors, which can be internal, external, or both. When events occur that exceed an individual's capacity to cope, their allostatic overload may occur. And it's a good guess that most of us had some kind of overload during this particular period, these last 5 years. Again, important to realize, look back, where were you in 2019, physically and mentally, and where are you now? What are the differences? So when that overload occurs, your body starts to break down. And again, there's that reaching out. The oxytocin is reaching out because you feel numb. You feel numb, and people will numb themselves to stop feeling the pain.
Yeah.
They're doing alcohol, they're doing drugs, sex, Netflix binging, whatever
Everything.
that, whatever that is, right? Just watch TV endlessly, play games endlessly. This is all numbing behaviors. You're not connecting with the world when you're doing these things, right? You are disconnecting. You are forgetting that you are a part of humanity and that it's mentally, emotionally very important to be connected to the rest of humanity. You are part of a big system, part of a big world. So, okay. One of the other things about you hear a lot these days, the kids use the term dopamine hit, and a lot of times it's in related to some of the drugs they're taking or the games that they're playing or whatever it is. But did you know that the neurotransmitter of curiosity is dopamine? So if you get into a state of curiosity, you can get a dopamine hit. All of you young people, listen to me. Stop.
Oh, that's a fascinating thing.
Isn't that
Well,
like
and when you think about learning new things, isn't that exciting? I mean, doesn't
that?
it get you all, feeling really good?
Isn't that a hell of a lot healthier than
Yeah.
stuff you're doing to get the dopamine hits? So look, it's this simple. Keep your mind open and become more passionate, including being self-compassionate, including taking care of yourself. And then you're on a way better, healthier path to reestablishing your balance, your body, mind, spirit, harmony, balance, over and over and over again. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about that yogic state of harmony. One of the good things about our nervous system being activated is that we get a heightened capacity to be able to focus. ADHD people are really good at this. You can use your mind to laser focus on getting a task done. So you use that energy. Why not use it to increase your vitality and your harmony?
Mm.
Online on Wednesday nights and do pranayama classes. Increase your freaking vitality. Do energy medicine, like tap your joy points and stimulate yourself so you get back into a place where you're feeling empowered, right? So there's this great quote that I love. There is a space between stimulus and response. In that space lies our power to choose. And in our choice lies our growth and our freedom. I love that because I always say to that quote, it's anonymous. I don't know who I give the credit, but I don't know who it's to. I always say, choose love. Always choose love. You know, like that is always the default way to go if you want to stay in a state of harmony. You have that power inside of you to regain your well-being, even when the outside forces continue to bombard us, which I'm not saying they've stopped. Do you feel like they've stopped? No.
But,
They've changed.
love and kindness, being kind, just thinking
Exactly.
what the kind thing is to do is,
Exactly.
makes a difference.
Absolutely. She's so right about that. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about restoring balance for our body, for our mind, for our heart, and meeting that challenge that this virus and the current social environment has actually offered up to us. So, number one tip, your body is not your enemy. Be aware of your body's automatic reaction to a perceived threat, fight, flight, freeze. Watch those responses. Bring yourself back into harmony when those happen. Be aware of them. Like every time you turn on the news, your blood pressure goes up. Well, maybe not turn on the news. maybe go take a hot bath or something, like do something else.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So really, and if you're feeling like it's just part of your world, you get it at work, whatever, develop ways to cope with the threat, so you can cover from its effects. You get home from work, you take a hot bath, you put on some aromatherapy, you put on some music, you do some meditation, you relax, there's a billion things you can do to get out of that stress. Don't stay in it. Don't just sit down and grab your TV dinner and watch TV and just sit in that stress. Don't do that. Take care of yourself. There's always something that you can do. Um, tip number two, your brother can still be your friend, even if you do not agree. This is a really important trick. Look, if you meet somebody with animosity, hit it head on with curiosity. Happened to me today. Somebody got ticked at me for something I said. And all I could say was, "What? I don't understand what's happening with you. Like, what's going on? Please tell me," that kind of thing.
That's
Meet.
great, though. I mean, you open the door there.
Exactly. And you don't punch him back. Nobody's ever going to get a peaceful outcome out of hitting each other in the head or yelling at each other or screaming at each other. It doesn't, I mean, we've seen where that goes. It doesn't work. So write this down on a post-it and look at it. Greet animosity with curiosity. You're allowing that other person to feel seen and heard. You're not hurting them. You're not condoning what they're doing. You're not saying it's okay with you. You're just allowing them to be seen and heard. Give them that space. Um, Especially with your loved ones. This virus really was hard on families. Do this with your loved ones. See if you can create a new space to exist together, coexist together. Don't have to agree with everything, just be able to coexist together. We can do that. Okay. Remember wonder and awe. That's one thing I didn't want to forget. Being curious opens you up to having the experience of wonder and awe. Like Chris was saying, it's like being a little kid. All the stuff that you can learn. You can open up new things, new projects. Okay, last one. Name your grief and let it go to the extent you can. So I know Chris is going to talk about grief next week, but you want to really identify if you are grieving on some level. And from there, practice self-compassion, love, self-love. Develop a habit of establishing a flow of love through your body every morning. Got up this morning and did energy tapping. And I made sure that, I tapped in all the places where I wanted joy and love. This is one of them. I do this heart thing where I get my heart energy going up and then I tap the joy into the third eye. And you can feel the energy move and uplift like right away. Find what works for you. There's all kinds of ways to restore your balance. Meditation is number one. Number one. Learn how to meditate. Come online and learn with us. We can teach you. breathing pranayams. Chris does a free pranayam class every Wednesday night. Get on the mailing list at yogacenter.org and you can come and join us. 5:30 every Wednesday night, Pacific time. Aromatherapy, sound vibration is used for healing. EFT tapping there's a new book out that I've already started to read that was part of Donna Eden's work, who is one of the most joyful people I know, but she's always been an intuitive, and now she's working, or she's actually in a relationship with a man who's a psychologist. He wrote a book basing this EFT on scientific studies. So he's taken it to a new level because she was doing it on her own, but he has now backed up the data to show us that this actually worked. Tapping is really powerful. It's like acupressure, like acupuncture, you're tapping on spots that make the energy start to move in your body where it wasn't before. Really, really healthy. So energy medicine, massage, there's another one. I mean, there's so many things that you can do in your self-love care plan. Create one of those. Get up every day and say, okay, I'm going to do one act of self-love every day. Make it amazing and feel good and do something different every day to show yourself how much you love yourself. So I hope this subject has been helpful for you. I really got on a roll when I started looking at all the stuff that was behind what this particular psychologist was talking about in terms of what's been happening to us, because everybody's trying to figure out what has gone on in these last 5 years and where are people and how can we help them get back into a really healthy state. So, you should do what works for you. And, I can only give you suggestions to motivate you to get started. So get started.
Started. Yeah. I mean,
Take back your well-being.
there was this great yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, and he said that when
Yes.
he had trouble starting to meditate, and then he basically had to say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to meditate. And he did that for a long time, but then he sat down and did it, and then it was great. I mean, for the rest of his life, he meditated and it was completely transformed. But you have to do that first step.
You have to get your butt in the chair.
Yes.
That's very true, because we've seen a lot of people come through the yoga center and say exactly the same thing. I was one of those people right here, like, no, I can't sit down and meditate. Just do it 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. And before you know it, you're going to be hooked.
Right. Before you know it, it's going to help you so much. You look forward to it all the time.
Yay. You're going to feel self-empowered. Trust us.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. See you next week.
We'll see you. Bye.